Alright, so I guess this is my first review, and also my first review to kick off the Dead Rising Marathon and try out this new format. That intro kinda sucked. So, Dead Rising, it's a joke. You all have probably heard about this franchise before. You can easily snap your thought to a guy dressed feminine while wearing a silly mask and holding a gun duct taped to a dildo. However, is there more to Dead Rising than just this? And why am I actually in this shit? I mean, this series has a lot more to offer than just jokes. So, what was the first Dead Rising like? Did it present an interesting concept? Did it leave itself open for sequels? Does the game hold up 11 years after release? Does Frank's... Yeah, I guess I got sidetracked there. Anyways, this is a headshot of Dead Rising. Alright, shut up! So, let's start off with the story. Well, I am currently working on a video where I cover the entire franchise's story. So if you want an objective look at the story, then watch that video, if it's out. However, story still has some relevance to video games, and this is a review after all. At least I think it is. So what I will do is just talk about the positives and negatives of the characters, plot, and method of storytelling. Dead Rising's plot is basic and cliched. Still, basic and cliched isn't always a bad thing. For the most part, the story is enjoyable. Are there plot holes? I don't know, but I bet if I started looking into it I could find a lot to complain about. However, I don't feel like there are any moments that brought enough attention to itself to make me question it. Well, besides from this bitch. She started the entire outbreak in the mall because she wanted her zombified dog back. Apparently she's a strong bitch too. Just look at her pushing aside the men trying to protect the door with her life. I can imagine how the entire story would go if she actually had a brain. But I digress. It didn't take long for me to forget this moment. The characters range from cliché to meh. I wouldn't say this game has strong and memorable characters. I mean, take a look at our main protagonist, Frank West. When he enters the picture... I didn't notice that I wrote that. Oh, yeah, the pun doesn't make much sense if you don't know that he's a journalist. When the photographer, Frank West, enters the picture, he is already cocky and arrogant. He talks about how everyone is going to remember him and how he one day will become world famous. After zombies enter the picture... Alright, I will stop. After he learns about the zombies, we get to see that he's a risk-taker willing to do anything for his scoop. So, there we go. A wise-ass journalist who will do anything for his scoop. Tell me if you ever heard that one before. Well, I'm not going to sell Frank short. I am aware that he got a massive following. I mean, there has to be a reason to why you see him everywhere. Hell, they even remade the sequel so that Frank could be the protagonist. And brought him back in Dead Rising 4. But I will get to that another time. So if he gets this special treatment, then what makes him stand out? I'm not sure. I'm not much of a Frank fan, but I will admit that he can be entertaining. If I were to guess, I would say that it's probably his voice. TJ Rotolo gave this character a fitting voice. I can't put my finger on it, but it just makes the character sound cocky, but vulnerable. In addition, seeing him vulnerable makes the character relatable. This is what separates him from the rest of the main characters. He's relatable. Besides, his cocky arrogance never comes off as annoying. Frank West might be a cliché, but his voice actor in conjunction with his writing makes him pop more. Otis is basically a guy in the chair, with a pilot license apparently. Dr. Barnaby is just an old grubby professor. Brock is the standard military villain. It feels like they made an attempt with Brad, Jesse, and Carlito, but it falls flat. Brad and Jesse are with Homeland Security, so Brad is just a standard issue agent, and Jesse... Honestly, I have no clue what Jessie is about. I mean, she gets one scene showing her losing her sanity, but when I know next to nothing about her, I just didn't care. The reason why I say an intent was made is because of the relationship. It seems like they have a past together. Obviously, they care about each other, but I have no clue what kind of relationship they were hinting on. Because you would assume that it would be a romantic relationship, but then you have scenes where it seems like it's more of an uncle-niece relationship. You know, like Batman and Batgirl. If you ignore this part. You know what? Exactly like Batman and Batgirl. Carlito is just a villain with a moral motivation. You know, the classical some man's terrorist, another man's hero. Brad and Carlito will have this cat and mouse fight throughout the game. I mean, it's probably only 2 to 3 times, but damn it, it feels like I'm watching a Tom and Jerry cartoon. These 3 characters get their emotional scene, but again, you feel no emotion. Besides from the scene with Brad. Rest in peace, is my old friend. I know it sounds like I hate this story, but I really don't. It's fine for the most part. Yes, I know that the story has a deeper meaning, but it's not exactly the reason why I play Dead Rising. There are different interpretations of the story, and I know that some people really consider that to be a crucial part of this game. Whether you see it as a story about consumerism or a story about not to mess with the forces of nature, it will still be the least important reason to play this game. What the hell is that? What the hell? Dude, do you need help? Just come here. Come on. No. That way. Walk that way. Walk that way. Dad. Walk back. Alright, that's it. That's it. So, let's get into the actual meat of the game. The gameplay. First of all, I'm reviewing the remaster. More specifically, the one on Steam. The remaster shouldn't be different from the original, you know, besides being high definition and shorter loading times. You can control Frank with mouse and keyboard, or a controller. I have never used mouse and keyboard in a Dead Rising game, and neither should you. The game was designed as an Xbox exclusive, meaning that the controls was designed with a controller in mind. Alright, with that said, let's move on. First off, it's a zombie game. But what does it do to separate itself from becoming generic? Well, the first thing you will do when you encounter zombies is to see a pile of items. This is one of the components that makes this game unique. Other zombie games will restrict you to only use weapons. Dead Rising tries to lean on the more realistic side in that if you were exposed to an outbreak, anything would be your weapon. You move Frank around with the left analog stick and a camera with the right. Moving Frank around will prompt an icon on the objects that you can pick up. While you can't pick up everything, it certainly feels like it. Hell, you can even pick up a shelf and use that as a weapon. That doesn't mean that more conventional weapons can't be used. You still got your handgun, machine gun, sniper rifle, shotgun, chainsaws, machetes, katanas, broadswords, lightsabers, and Mega Man's Mega Buster. So yeah, You got a lot of variety. Other things that you can pick up is different food items and magazines. Eating food restores your life and magazines gives you a perk. But to compensate, it takes up one slot of your limited item stock. You pick things up with a circle button or B. It might be a little bit tiresome at times to pick up an item when there are multiple items nearby. You have to move the camera or Frank to pick up the one specific item that you want. But it's really no problem. It can kinda get annoying when I've used up all my item slots and end up dropping different items. The worst part is that the pickup button is the same button used to access other areas. I swear to God, the moment when you kill zombies near a door and they drop a hand when you have full inventory, when you drop the item and pick up the hand instead. You keep spamming trying to just get through the door with your current weapons, and by a slip up, you enter the next area with a useless hand and the weapon you dropped has despawned. Fuck's sake. Item variation leads to the next component that separates this game. Open world or open mall. Welcome to Willamette, where the town is dried out while the colors is washed out. The only thing with people and color is the Willamette Mall. Now, I haven't been to the US, but this mall is huge with a lot of attractions. There is apparently 54,000 people in this town. I live in a town with 40,000 people and our mall is small as shit. But at least we have McDonald's. That shit is in every mall. They have 4 plazas, one being under construction but still has a food market. Not including the food court, a theater with 5 screens and a huge park with a pond. One plaza even has a space ride attraction. But no McDonald's. I guess that's supposed to be a reminder that this is a fictional mall. Oh yeah. Don't forget the maintenance tunnels loaded with zombies. Still, shouldn't be too hard to navigate through considering you got different methods of traveling. No, the mall isn't big enough to need a fast travel system, but it can still take a while to walk from one end to the other. To compensate for that, you can pick up a skateboard and show those pro skater tricks. Even enjoy a ride on your bike. You know, your badass motorcycle. You can drive cars, but it's very restricted. The driving controls aren't really too bad, but why the hell can't you move the camera while driving? There are loading times every time you enter an area. I understand why. This game is from 2006 after all. But with the remastered, loading times are so short it's basically non-existent. I spent so much time on this review and I haven't even talked about the most controversial component. The game may have the feel of a sandbox game, but it has direction. Frank West wants a Pulitzer, so he has to get his hands dirty. With blood. So in most open world games you're guided via missions, but unlike most open world games, the missions have a timer. They incorporate the timer via the story. Frank gets dropped down into the mall and the helicopter returns in exactly 3 days. There is a reason to why the story mode is called 72-hour mode, because you have exactly 72 hours to beat the story. Luckily, in-game time is not the same as real time. 24 hours in-game is 2 hours in real life. So if Matthew do well, it should be this many hours to beat the game. Missions can be divided into 2 types of missions. The main missions dubbed cases and the side missions dubbed scoops. These missions have their own timers. Let's start with the scoops. Why? Well, let me be frank. It frankly doesn't have that much variation when it comes to missions. Otis will call you if you choose to answer that call. Not that you have that much of an option. I mean, even if you ask at Scrabble while chatting with him, he just calls you again and decides to spend even more time repeating what he said and also bitch to you for cutting me off. I'm sorry, Otis, but there's a fucking zombie apocalypse and I'm kinda busy. While you can't avoid that ringtone, the missions itself are optional, including the cases. The scoops itself are either escorting a survivor to a safe house or defeating a psychopath.
Help! 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 Ah! Help! 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 Ah! Help! 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 Ah!
Let's talk about the psychopaths first. Walking around the place you'll meet some survivors who have snap. I actually really like this concept. Remember how I said that most characters are stereotypes? Well, I meant the characters in the main story. But these psychopaths has been given a personality. Sure, it's kinda rushed, but I felt more seeing Adam or Cliff dying than seeing Carlito dying. Because of that, I'm not going to spoil these psychopaths for you. It won't ruin your experience. But the impacts of these psychopaths is better if you don't know what you're getting into. Gameplay wise, psychopaths functions as the bosses in the game. Zombies aren't really a challenge to kill. I started playing this franchise with Dead Rising 2, because I own a PlayStation and I didn't want to betray my console by buying an Xbox. Team PlayStation.
Actually, PC Master Race. You see, PC is a lot better than console. You can have better optimization better graphics, you can have mods. Actually, PC has the better option. Mouse and keyboard is a lot more viable than controller. Yeah, a lot more.
I've never had any problems with difficulty in Dead Rising games. I hear people often talk about how difficult it is. I mean, maybe if you're a casual gamer, but I had no issue with the difficulty. When I heard that the first Dead Rising game is the hardest one, I was kinda excited to get more of a challenge. I'm not saying that these types of games need higher difficulty, but I was curious. An hour in, and me being used to the other Dead Rising games made everything easy for me. Until I met my first psychopath. Not counting Carlito, my god, he is a joke. The first two psychopaths are Adam and Cletus, if you find him. My god, did I get my ass beat. Adam jumps all over the place. I had firearms, but he blocks it with a chainsaw. How do you block bullets like that? He is agile and only stops to either attack, block, or blow this balloon that contains some sort of dust to stun you. Trust me, you don't want to be stunned. In fact, you don't want to stand still at all. He has two powerful attacks with the chainsaw, and if he hits you, you are a goner. The amount of damage he deals is guaranteed to insta-kill you. You might be lucky once in a blue moon and survive with a sliver of health, but damn it, he also has throwing knives. Actually, it's easier to land a hit on him while he's throwing these knives. If you run into Cletus on beforehand, then good fucking luck. He stands behind a counter and spams his shotgun. He's not as strong, but if you get hit, you spend some time to recover. Meanwhile, he taunts you by drinking. You can dodge the bullet by standing behind something, but be careful because sometimes you can shoot through that too. Needless to say, I experienced a challenge. So, are the rest of the psychopaths as intricate as Adam, or as bullshit as Cletus? I don't know. It was fun to beat Adam. Yes, it was difficult, but I managed to get a pattern down and slay him. Once you do that though, you get his chainsaw. Actually, killing psychopaths will give you access to that weapon they are using. It's a nice reward to be honest, and it feels like it was worth it to spend time here. Remember, it's time. The problem is that Adam's chainsaw is so strong and easily accessible that every psychopath after him is easily taken down. If you are smart, then the entire game becomes a cakewalk. Okay, so Dead Rising is a little bit more difficult than other games, but still not difficult. I guess we have to talk about survivors. The other type of missions is to escort survivors. They are easy to spot and they are usually calling for your help. After a quick chat, they will join you. Unless you meet some of the needy fucks that need some persuasion. Usually fetching them something or beating the sense into them. I can't say that without smiling. Some survivors might be old or injured and requires you to carry them or literal hand-holding. But trust me, you wish that you could carry every survivor. You can't do much while carrying them, but it's so much easier and faster. The end goal is to get them to the safe house, which, depending on where you found the survivor, can be an easy parole or a walk through hell. Unless you're carrying them though, because that's when you have full control. The AI is outright stupid. I don't mean predictable pattern stupid. I mean only one brain cell stupid. The worst part about the dumb AI is that the survivors have different skill levels. I get it, they try to be more realistic. A survivor who used to be a security guard should be more capable of using a gun. A spoiled rich survivor might not be as combat ready. It's more realistic, but also more censored? Well, I guess I said something so offensive that I had to censor it. Well, that's what I feel about the survivors. It's complete realism is okay, but make sure that realism don't get in the way of the game. If I get a wanted level in Grand Theft Auto, I won't have to flee the country, change my identity, and lay low for several years. Some survivors are so stupid that you just want to There is no way to describe this. Survivors struggling to get through a door, survivors not being able to jump, survivors stopping in the middle of a horde trying to shoot them, survivors leaping towards the horde thinking they are the main character, survivors not listening to you and still charges towards the zombies, survivors running the opposite way, survivors firing the gun at you, survivors refusing to hold your hand, and survivors becoming crippled for some reason. If zombies truly wanted brains, then you would think that survivors would be immune. What the actual fuck happened here? I didn't even lock the door! They just don't know how to use a handle! Rescuing survivors and killing psychopaths still has rewards. As a thank you, survivors will give you a massive PP. I haven't talked about leveling yet, have I? With PP, I mean prestige points. Killing a certain amount of zombies, killing psychopaths and rescuing survivors gives you loads of PP. Even convincing one of these bastards to join you gives you PP, but you will earn a lot more if you successfully escort them or go one step further and escort multiple survivors. Frank has stats like health, item stock, speed, strength, and throw distance. So leveling up doesn't feel like just a number since you increase crucial stats. And throw distance. Leveling up also unlocks Frank's maximum power. You can get different combo moves and some of them can be useful in case you don't have weapons or you want to be careful to not break your weapon. There is a major list of moves that he can pull off. Who would have thought that this man could do a somersault? But hey. Combo moves also gives you PP, but don't expect leveling up from it. The only thing I don't like about the combo moves is that they all use a combination of only 2 buttons, and maybe the left analog stick. Look at this, A and B plastered all over the place. I understand why they did it, you know, this isn't exactly a fighting game, but still, it's very clunky to pull off these moves. The somersault is done by pressing A and B, or square and X. However, the jump kick is the exact same thing, so you might have avoided a grab if you did a somersault, but you end up doing the jump kick instead. Trying to do a jump kick can also be unresponsive if you press the attack button slightly delayed, because then you will perform the roundhouse kick. You might try to do a disembowel by holding forward and, you guessed it, pressing A and B. Sometimes you will do the zombie right instead, which is holding forward and pressing A. Disembowel is the exact same as picking a zombie up. And don't get me started on all the variables if a zombie is on the floor. It's not too much of a problem, but it can certainly become annoying. Sheesh, I'm closing in on 4,000 words here. Luckily, there's only one more component to talk about, and that is replayability. The game expects you to replay 72-hour mode several times. As I mentioned earlier, some people struggle with beating this game, and maybe that was their intention. When you restart the game on the same save slot, you keep your level, meaning in case you fail a case and you know that you can't load a save state where you can finish the case, you might have to restart. Doing so means you know what's ahead and also has better stats to deal with those situations. Doing a perfect run is next to impossible on your first go, but replaying with a max level Frank and knowledge makes things a little easier. Replayability is usually the main factor of smaller games. You know, games that last 2-hour tops. The classic Sonic games are well known for replayability, because it takes about 30 minutes to finish the game and you keep replaying to get the better time, or to get all the Chaos Emeralds. Every playthrough does take 6 hours, but doesn't feel like it takes that long. I was surprised that I actually managed to replay everything in one session to get footage. It didn't drag. I lost count of the amount of times I've hit that new 72-hour mode button. So, in the end, what makes Dead Rising Dead Rising? I would say all of these mechanics mix into one. Never have I seen this many components flowing so well together. Sure, you could have an open world zombie game, but combine that with a timer and you have a weird experience. Add a lot of item variation and a level system that encourages replayability, and you will have something that feels so well crafted. One mechanic doesn't make the game stand out, but the synergy between all the mechanics makes for one unforgettable experience. Remove only one of these mechanics and Dead Rising is no longer as fun or memorable. I've heard several complaints about people wanting the timer to be removed, but honestly, no. The timer is a crucial mechanic. If the timer didn't encourage you to move on, you would lose the sense of strategy. You would never feel like you have to worry about the items around you because you have enough time to grab them. What's the point of replaying, because anything you want to do would be easy to do at your first run? Honestly, what is there to do in Dead Rising besides mission? I am including rescuing survivors and defeating psychopaths as a part of the mission. The mall might be large, but the world is small. There are no side activities. Killing zombies becomes boring quick. Add the timer and all these problems are solved. You feel that sense of urgency the entire time. You have to think strategically. Do you have the time to go to Wonderland Plaza to pick up the chainsaw? Or do you risk it by relying on the Bowie knife combined with a parasol to clear the zombies in order to rescue the survivor? Be careful with the item management because you won't have time to run back and forth all the time. If you screw up, you can replay it and you're encouraged to do so. Zombies aren't there for you to kill senseless. They are an obstacle that tries to hinder you from doing everything in time. While the synergy of these mechanics is almost reaching perfection, the game still has a lot of problems. The survivor AI is really where the difficulty lies. It's just too unbearable and still, you don't need to rescue any survivors to beat the game. It becomes an annoyance when you're trying to do a perfect run. But the first time I played, I rescued the survivors only when I felt like doing so. It was a lot more enjoyable, because if one of the survivors died, I didn't care. And if I managed to do escort anyone, I was rewarded. This case files does contain some survivor escort, but what's this? She doesn't charge into the zombies. She actually knows how to use a gun. Look! She killed someone! And then she killed another one! I never need to go back to save her, and she can protect herself. Sometimes she even saves me. I think I'm in love. The combat is kind of clunky and the controls definitely are dated, but it's not impossible to get used to. The game has a story, and while I understand that this is something a lot of people cherish, I honestly don't care much. Still, I appreciate the attempt at something deep. The gameplay makes up for everything. I know there are modes like Overtime mode and Infinity mode, but I guarantee that if you like this game, then most of your time goes into playing 72-hour mode. I strongly recommend this to zombie fans. I mean, why haven't you bought it yet? If you are that kind of guy that doesn't care about zombies or third-person overworld, I actually don't think this is an introductory game. The difficulty or the timer might turn you off early on if you're trying to do a perfect run. I played on the Steam version and I strongly recommend that version, but PlayStation and Xbox don't seem to have any problems. As your first zombie game, go into this with caution. So, 5,000 words on this review, and I still have things I want to talk about. This game, I love it. Thank you if you managed to get this far, and I really appreciate it. If you are a Dead Rising fan or you're just interested in the series, then stay tuned, because next time I will...